Few hours. Yesterday your positive plan right, isn't it? Swans win. Excellent Swans win.
Excellent Ireland win.
For some of us, the rest of us it wasn't. For me to have a coffee, it's got to be incredibly nice. I used to go when I say incredibly naughty, I don't get this mean a lot, and I mean, an incredibly naughty naughty. Yeah. And lose the more than the volume ranges. No. Definitely white acid too. See, I can do it. How are you, right?
Alright, yeah, and good weekend.
Apart from Wales, of course.
It was mitigated by the situations.
Yes.
And I thought Wales were going to lose tonight as well.
Yeah, me too.
I only saw that, very much.
I waited.
Yeah.
It was probably
It was terrible.
Like Ireland played.
The Irish subject too much. They weren't great, were they?
No, but they weren't.
Too
They're more like Wales didn't like they genuinely just didn't watch it.
That's what happened. Yeah, this would have been.
Like it wasn't the best ever, but
If you got that try, which wasn't a try.
Yeah.
I don't know why. When we try.
Yeah, that's what you turn around and keep the ball.
Yeah.
You don't go again.
We would have caught. We would
Yeah,
have
yeah.
We would
We had two
going to win.
good plays, which was that, and then they got to like 5 meter line, and that was it. The whole game.
Well, I can only say at least you actually scored a try or two.
This is a picture, I think that sums it all up.
Hey, bro, you man. Yeah. Yeah. He changed into it, then. Yeah, the further back. Yeah. No.
Is Kate upstairs?
Yeah.
On the wallpaper.
We saw her.
Saw the car up.
And Caroline.
On the wallpaper, Mr. Cook.
I know. It's good, isn't it?
It's very worrying.
I like it.
I'm concerned.
To be fair, you probably should be actually.
No
chance.
You go for surf today, Dan?
I really wanted to, but I was a good boyfriend.
Fiance, future husband.
He was working nights. And I didn't see her yesterday afternoon because of football.
Okay.
And I had a 2-hour window to see her today before she went back to work.
Okay.
She woke up at 3, got to work at 5, so that was using the window as well. So I chose fiance over
Good choice.
You chose that.
chose that.
Good choice.
Even though all
I took the safe choice.
Good choice.
Did you, does she know that you told Joe about it? Did you know?
I made it.
I've
Points then. Yeah. Could you not have gone something off of church and then be back with 3?
So if we were not, this is like decided to.
Okay, yeah. We got it.
Wait, if you said Langland, Dad. You Langland, read.
Every now and again, normally, again, I like the briefs as well.
Okay.
The fear for me is, so the fear is, if they get
I went down to Oxford yesterday, it was rubbish.
so they
It's too southern, it's too much south to me. If it was more like southwest or west, you know,
I've only seen it work once.
Slippers, I like
teenagers.
Civic
And
slippers.
I have suspicion that the fees will go.
They're definitely not.
I'd rather find, I know they're not, yeah, exactly, I probably should have.
He'll just come back now and say, you missed.
That's such an error. It's really bad.
Just I always think we give back these cards. They have sheep.
I think they're doing a few more. I don't know if we've seen them at the end of it yet.
I think it's more stories than
It's absolutely incredible.
we haven't seen the last one yet. There's enough out
They say the Thames is on the point of nuclear plants in Windsor and
Really?
places in Berkshire and Surrey.
there. Going back 11 years, I used to live there. I remember going down one probably winter, yeah, I remember being dressed up pretty warmly and just seeing the banks of the Thames, up to the a signpost saying footpath and the river was up here, just crazy.
These are our new table set.
No.
No? These are the old
These are the old
tables.
tables which are going.
Okay.
These, I think, are going to go to London.
Oh,
The new ones, hopefully,
What are they made from? They washing machines.
well done. That's
The new ones, they're incredible.
That's
I'm so
it.
excited. They're not tables, they're vessels.
They're vessels.
Vessels.
How big are they? Like, what kind of size?
The coffee tables, because they look like lobster bites. But like,
Yeah.
huge for that. Then they've got a part which turns out, like comes out, and becomes the coffee table, so it can be like a chair. Or a coffee table.
Just beautifully engineered,
Oh,
isn't it?
it's really good. And they've got on both sides, like the fishing room, like the rest of the fishing room. On the side.
Then you've got the hull of the boat one, glass, the iPad. Yeah, that's something pretty cool.
We should start. Alright. If we said 6:30, what time would be great?
Yeah,
7.
exactly. So then at least we start.
Yes.
Yeah.
20 past.
What would you guys do?
I'm Rory, this is Clark.
Hello?
Rory and Claire.
Yeah.
Dustin with a D. Yeah, Hoffman.
How else are we
Not
supposed to?
either. Well, people tend to think it's Justin.
Justin.
I say Dustin, they're like Justin. And they will know me for years and still say Justin.
I like your voice in it, like Dustin Hoffman, not Justin.
Yeah. See, you guys seem like, classy, cultured people where I can say that.
Definitely go for all.
I can't say it with teenagers. I've been trying to find
Do they
Google.
even know who Dustin Hoffman is?
No. I have no reference. Apparently, in tennis, there was this guy from Germany, this like African German guy. His name was Dustin. He was doing really good, and then he got knocked out of this tournament. I don't know. It's just what people were saying, and I was pulling from just because I think there's another
If he
reference
breaks
point.
through, yeah.
There's another reference point because Dustin Hoffman eventually would just, do off.
Disappear in
Yeah. So.
It's terrible.
I know the name somewhere, Justin Hoffman. I couldn't think of where. I'm clearly not cultured and all.
Meet the Fockers.
Meet the Fox.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the most sort of
Yes.
younger person
Yeah.
film.
I was going to say, you're only like a couple of years older than me, so
Yeah.
it's not,
I'm quite, like, I love them as well. He made The Graduate, which I've never seen.
no?
No, he's gonna. actually.
Did you bring your own beer?
For my
Yeah, I did.
You don't sell beer here.
Nice to meet you.
Well,
It would be
I was just
spectacular.
thinking when I was at you my coffee. That's not fair. Yeah. You mentioned beer as well.
Beer in a wine glass.
Next time. Also, like, take around when we bring to the next bottle one.
Really?
And I know he can't come himself to London.
We wanted to do, he apologised.
And Dave, Dave,
See you there. Is he coming?
He's coming.
Seems part of my role to bring a nice bottle of wine.
Because you're consultant.
Yeah.
Consultants bring the nice bottle of wine.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, isn't it?
sounds fair, especially with Dave Hackett.
I think we should talk about,
No, I'm not.
salaries here.
Yeah.
Oh, that is new though, then.
Dan, when's Kate working this week?
She's off most of the week. But, there's a big but.
Who's big butt? Your big butt?
My big but. So short doesn't, one of her best friends is down Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
London?
They were in London together. She's gonna be right to me. I mean, shy.
So are they gonna do mailing things, or are they just gonna do girly things?
So no, they're very excited.
Sounds good. I just stay away. Stay away. Stay away.
Good.
You.
I'll stay away. Take the day off.
He wishes.
So you just bought a place then?
We did buy a place this week.
When we were out with that?
Yeah, exciting. Scary. It's
Where?
Beside London.
Is that? Yes. Pretty much John's on the end. Do you know Mulberry?
Yes. Where?
So that's the one.
Where Jared used to live. Where Percival used to live. Yeah, they used to live up from your the one that you put on over. They used to live past the comments. They're now in Mercia.
Anyway,
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah, it's called Sunday Bumper. And Ed and Sarah. So we've got two boys, Dylan and Noah.
I know who that is.
They went to view another house on our side.
The 3-bedroom?
Yeah, the 3-bedroom.
But you told us to buy?
Yeah, you should buy that. Get in before them. They viewed this week. Fight to the death. I would love
Happily, yeah. If that's why I have to pay for the house, it'd be cheaper.
A great sacrifice my life on that one. My life is, yeah.
It's Ben. Sort of Karen, Dave, can you done?
Good day, Phil.
Just your name, Dave.
Yeah, well, anyway, I'll try to be
So then, in the States.
There he is.
I was born in town, but I grew up in.
Is that that?
Yeah.
It's nice, isn't it?
I was 16, and I went to Ohio.
Did you watch it, Dave?
And,
The match?
Yes,
I
I
don't
know.
like to live in Ohio.
Smug face?
And what you live here?
My wife.
Honestly?
Okay.
I don't mind seeing that.
Well, we will support Ireland to beat Wales, but then the rest of the time, pretty much.
You're strong.
Anybody else have it playing?
Pretty much, yeah.
How
My bad day for the Swans, happy bad day.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it wasn't as nice as not to do you.
Sitting here.
Oh, that's amazing.
How big was it?
I had some of my brother-in-law's wedding. But yeah.
Last person winners.
And I think we moved on.
Yeah.
I know, so it's
I've been waiting for that.
They've asked enough in comments.
Good, yeah. Yeah, just, you should be good, you know. Good seeing them, it's nice, what you like, you know.
How are we?
Yeah,
Yeah, good. Not too bad at all.
Your surface has to be.
It is.
Both being very good.
We're right.
This is one day, we have to get the revolution going.
Yeah.
This one, yeah.
Like you've got 7 reasons.
This week has just been, and then there's another 6 weeks.
865. Do you want to know some ratings later?
Apart from the
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. That's I got a scribble sheet of paper.
I got loads of this.
We've got 3 viewers online, which is good.
Oh, wow.
Hello, 3 viewers.
Hi, viewers.
Now we do it.
No, not at all.
Viewers online, can you tweet who you are? We want to know who you are. Let us know if you're watching.
You can't be an automatic watch online, is it?
Carolyn and Kate are upstairs. Tony. She's gone away, is she?
Are they the 3 people who are viewing online?
I hope not.
Viewing online from upstairs. No, we haven't seen it.
That's a photo I've seen.
You saw it. One of those apps entirely fun.
Get off my
I don't really
penny
care
for a
about
second.
them anyway.
I was going to do that, but
It works. It works.
Have a donut.
Bike forward?
So, don't know whether the problems are.
I was on that donut. I really was.
I feel really bad.
Sorry, don't, fine. Yeah, exactly.
Did you want one this whole time? You just say, get your work or something to have.
was a small one.
yeah.
Really? Yeah. You should have said, I was clean my tongue to lose flavor. I would. Oh, really? I don't mind it there.
If you're here in the cafe, there are nice snacks on the tables. If you're watching online, you're missing out. No snacks for you.
Should we take your donut? There you go.
Close to the spot.
No.
You want one?
That one.
Someone's put out a gamble.
I assume that's like an apple.
You are
Wars.
one? Yeah. Silence always means I do. Cute. So excited right now.
Should we make the door for the next show? I don't know, I'm going up to you. I don't know.
Do a drum roll. Should we stand by with these regular?
Oh, that is a very good quality.
Two of the viewers, the Tudors, hello the Tudors, on different laptops.
No
way!
No!
Sat on different sofas.
Do they know they get the same thing?
I presume so.
There is that is marriage to you right there, isn't it? It's the same house.
We should have a debate on that.
Watching the same thing in different rooms on different laptops.
I think same room,
Can they hear
same
us?
sofas. I guess you can hear us. Can you hear us? Tweet us if you can hear us.
You make that sound like a bad thing, Ben.
No. Is everyone here? Anna's
not here.
Anna's just pulled up. Should we wait for Anna? Oh yeah. I do have an issue with all you guys. 7 o'clock start, you're very bad for 7.
Do you know how long it takes to pick everyone up the front? I've been driving on Gowers on that one.
Should we say next time is 6:30 start? Oh, you're tripped as well.
Say whatever you want, Dan.
It means
You can put it in everyone. We're Christians. It's Sunday night. Or you can start 7:30. What is on the books then?
I thought you were allowed to start earlier, so you wouldn't go on.
Well, it's going to start at 7:30 by 9 we'll be.
yeah, if we did it.
Chili
We started
soup.
and we started at
Yeah.
Now we'll start at 7 and start at 8:30.
Okay.
Then was that? Each watch it, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, so the first time I
I was 2000.
Apparently, one thing that doesn't follow.
I was still getting
Thank you, Jesus.
No, the thing is, I can't remember what that's amazing.
Ah, so Wi-Fi password is Chingola1 with a capital C. CHR capital C.
Where's Swansea?
You should wear Swansea
Actually, where's Swansea?
Chingola, G-O-L-A. Yeah, Matt Davis.
Matt Davis.
So right, yeah, that's not. Once you go, just go to the place.
It's where the 10 days.
When
Young people.
No, I didn't like.
It's probably better. Did you make a deeper chill out album in 2005? Yeah. He's got on his iPhone. Anyway, let's begin. Welcome everyone. We've dropped down to 2 viewers.
Oh, I wonder
for the
why.
Tudors.
Tudors have moved up to 1 laptop. For those of you online, in the house tonight we have 12 people, plus us 3, 15. You 2, 17 of us. You 2 here, Bono is over there, raising money for Africa. So tonight, I've been dropped in at the last minute by John Matthews. John was going to host tonight, but about an hour ago he dropped out. So I'm standing in, and I don't think we need too much of an introduction. We'll get straight into it. We're going to be discussing why the church loses so many young people. And I guess that throws out a lot of questions. What do we mean by young people? What do we mean by church? But tonight, what do we mean by losing exactly? Lots of these questions will be thrown around tonight. I'm going to introduce 2 esteemed youth workers who've got lots of experience. Steve Jones, who's my youth worker for 25 years. Respect.
How can you be your youth worker for 25 years.
And
You were young.
I know I learned
From-
25
You're
years.
not baby.
from he delivered him.
It's been a long
In England, that's how we grow. And JT from the tribe, who's doing amazing work all around Swansea, has been for as long as I can remember. And longer, yes.
When dinosaurs roamed the earth.
When dinosaurs roamed the earth. Do you both want to introduce yourself before we carry on? JT, do you want to go first? We're using a mic so the tutors can hear us.
Okay, I'm JG, I'm married to Janet, yes, it's Janet and John. I know the books, it's okay. Got 3 children, Karis, who's 30, Thursday, Mark, who I've just had a curry with, and Zoe, who's the youngest. Yes, I did found Tribe back in March 1989, and I do other stuff as well to do with apologetics. If you don't know what apologetics is, look it up in the dictionary. That's about me, really. I like ants. Happy to have a discussion with ants. Won't you come down on a Sunday night? I'm there.
Hello.
I'm Steve. I worked at Sutton. I started doing children's work when I was 16, so it's like I've been doing this for over 48 years now. Up to now. So it's good fun. Last 3 years, I'm chaplain in prison, which is basically youth work for naughty boys. So it's good. That's me.
2 things I forgot to say. I think I'm 2 months older than that Greek fella.
For the budget.
Yeah. Right? And I led the youth group in Linden throughout the 80s.
Ooh.
There you go.
And I didn't.
And Steve did it. If you are online and you tweet, use hashtag Headspace Swansea throughout the evening, and we'll feed some of that into the discussion. If you're here tonight and don't want to speak, you can tweet and we'll get that. So, Steve,
Yes.
would you like to begin?
Yes, we want to ask you a question because one of the solutions to the problem is that we need more debates in church. So, I mean, you can do it in 3s or whatever and then come back to us. Why do young people come to church? So, we can throw that out, or you can do it where you are, have a little chat and then come back to us.
What do we want to do? Do they want to just throw out ideas, or do they want to...
church, so let's get the groups of 3.
So that means minimum of 5 people, because that's what churches do. Have a quick chat. Why do people come and then tell us? Or church or watch? Yes. Why do? It gives us a bit of background.
Because that's, you just want to spend time with friends, I suppose, and then I think that, for me, introduced me to God and that kind of thing. So, and like church God, so hopefully just...
Okay, let's feed back. Rory, will you run around with the mic?
Means I don't have to speak.
Yes.
I'm not holding it for you.
Hot girls.
Hot girls. Yeah, we got that one.
Boys.
Yeah.
Harry. Go on, Harry.
This is like bingo now.
Yeah, we got that one.
We said a lot of the reasons that kids come up through church is because of families. I got that one.
Yeah.
And for people like me who don't come from a religious background, kind of youth groups for a lot for younger kids, and then they get brought up through the church that way.
Okay.
Indoctrination is that?
Would that be friends?
Yeah, friends bringing in.
Okay. But also, yeah.
No, Miles, would you like to ask one person? Go on, Anna. Got a good accent. Yeah,
Go on. We're up to two.
Miles, would
Go on.
you go first.
So I said that I like going to church because I enjoy it.
Good.
Oh, that's just small, that's about it. Mike? No, I'm not speaking. Carry the microphone.
I'm not much of a speaker.
Claire said hot boys.
Oh, boy,
I did say
yeah.
hot boys, I just said boys.
She said hot boys, and she was
You're
referring.
thinking hot
She was referring entirely to me.
Yes, of course.
So we should
Boy, I come to church.
Yes, it is. No, we said friends, family, and
Yeah.
Claire said hot boys.
I said boys. You just go to your church title.
I know.
One of the reasons I asked that, so one of the reasons I asked that is like, and also, we just did it quickly here, we got social and habit. So a lot of people just do a habit as well. But in the couple of surveys done, hardly anybody mentions God, that they actually want to be there for God, which is quite a very interesting thing. You know, we have got a very spiritual generations, and some will look for God, but on the whole, God's never mentioned in that, which was quite interesting. So now, we want you to ask the question that we're supposed to be answering. Why do young people leave church? We want to see what your thoughts are before we tell you our thoughts, if that's okay. So have another reach out.
Okay.
Nobody mind. Social life.
Feeling let down. In the sense of
Nothing for me.
nothing for me. Say for example, I can't say what sounds
Because it could be like, their initials
I
remain.
turned 13.
And you
No
never-
something for me. My church is tiny, no script, no walls, nothing.
Yeah,
Church
they're
for
fine.
nothing for me at all. None of my friends were there. There was nobody my age.
in all honesty, I think I would have as well.
My mum and my dad went to church. That's really good church. But it wasn't like I wanted to go to theatre either. It was just I was given this choice. And it was kind of like I don't get everything out of the church. It's like
If you are if you're looking for friendly people,
have a shoe on.
yeah.
If you're like a young person in like a small village church, then you might hate that until like old people. Like,
You totally give me the mic because I can do this.
I completely like
I'm
old
fine
people.
with that.
For me,
Yeah, but I went back to take up skill in my church and we started with like sort of vibrant.
yeah, we changed the skills.
Between the age of 5 to like 9 or 10. And in 4 years that built up, we had 25 then on our list. So, you know, there was still sort of turnover of those kind of age groups, but there was the closest age to me, the kids actually, it was me, so as a 23-year-old, half the age when I was leaving, and there was the parents, So immediate purging or recording, then there were a couple of sort of
Throw this up.
and the only reason I'm there
Okay, we'll start putting it back in. Just to let you know that the Tudors thought reasons young people went to church were friends, community, loneliness, love, God, and guilt. So God was in there.
With a bit of guilt.
God with a bit of guilt. That's how the church works, isn't it?
Why don't the Tudors on the big screen?
I don't know.
Because they haven't included kind of, yeah, I suppose probably.
Yeah, they have. Okay, so thoughts. Rory.
What?
Take Johnson.
It's time to shine.
I was just repeating it.
He said because it's boring for some, and sometimes they want to experiment other things, and sometimes there are other things in life that constitute our life that clash with church, and then we just opt not to go to church because there's this other thing that's interesting. Yeah, things like that.
Okay, sweet.
I think that we don't tell our young people that they're going to church because it's a good social habit and it's a good habit to have to be grounded. We tell them that that's where we find God, when actually that isn't often the case. So there are lots of really good reasons apart from God to go to church, and we don't actually promote those. And then when we do promote church to young people, it's
Hi, Kate.
it's kids.
Awkward.
And so when we do tell young people to come to church, we tell them because God's there, which we already found out isn't necessarily true. And I think that's just the first of many things that we get wrong when we tell young people. And I think we bring them up, so when they're going out of habit, or when they're going because their family go, and when they're going because their friends go, when they start to have questions, we give them the answer, and we tell them, oh, I've got a question about this, what's the answer to this? And we say, well, this is the answer to this. And sometimes it's not true, or sometimes the answer is a lot more complex, or sometimes there isn't an answer, but we give them an answer because we think that an answer is what they want. When actually there isn't an answer, and what they want is the truth. And if that happens enough, then young people will leave the church too. So, I mean, if they're going out of social and habit, we don't actually tell them that's a good thing. And if they go because of God, they get disillusioned with the fact that either he's there, and if he is there, they're not necessarily getting the real answers.
It's interesting.
We thought lots of things actually. So if the reason they were coming in the first place was friends, and friends drift away, then they're probably going to drift away as well. If they fall out with their youth worker, something's said, a figure of authority lets them down, that's not going to be great. Dustin said he's seen examples in his own experience of people saying something but living life differently, and so being disappointed with that. I've got two little girls and I've been quite interested in this, and so been to Rob Parsons' lecture tour about this topic, and I've been reading about it. I think not, church being boring and not fun and not relevant, but I think not being involved, not being given responsibility, and there being no connection. There's a really good connection between kids and teenagers. Often there's relationships that form, they know each other's name, they've got role models to look up to. But for teenagers, when it doesn't work, I think they don't have a great connection with young adults or even slightly older adults, people who would be their mentors and role models. And actually, one of the things that's really protected is people knowing your name in church. So if you're a young person in church, and one of the adults comes up and goes, hi, version getting interested in you, remember what they talked about last week with you, you start to belong. So, is there anything else?
Figured it out.
Well, I did leave church for about 5 years when I was a teenager for many reasons. One of the biggest ones was I was being sort of left to my own devices. There was absolutely nothing in my church for anybody over the age of about 12, 13. So you went to Sunday school till you were that age. We went to Church of Ireland, so you got confirmed 12, 13. And then if you wanted to come to church, you were coming to church as an adult pretty much, which sucked. So it was boring and nobody cared once you got to about the age of that 13. And no support from anybody really. And you lost a little bit of faith, not in God, but in church itself, for me especially. And there wasn't really anything to bring me back to church. It was my own decision when I got a little bit older. Anybody?
And the tutors have tweeted in and said, inflexibility and black and white views, what is always going to be an indefinite subject. Well done, the tutors.
Before I pass on to my aged man, I've got 18 months in. I've got about at least 30, most of them of my own, some from the internet. And I love this one. We've been hurt, and the writer says, I can actually include myself in this one personally. Sometimes the hurtful act is specific, like when your youth leaders who are Bible at me for asking wrong questions. Yes. And then he went on to say about the mental bit and the physical bit. But yeah, so we can be hurt physically by youth workers allegedly, and yet so Bible it's not. So other things, but not Bible. Over to you. Yeah,
Okay, it's really funny that it's almost like should I come up with a load of answers? Well, let's see. I think I'm going to come up with observation as well as answers. Some of you may not know the sort of background I have in terms of young people. I know I look really old, and I'm not. I did a test on Facebook the other day as to what my mental age was. It was 16. Which, and that was an honest, I answered the questions really honestly. I came up with 16. That's the way that it is, folks. Tribe is 95% unchurched young people, meaning they don't come from Christian or church backgrounds. And it's been like that for quite a long time. So my experience of working with young people is a little bit different than perhaps a more traditional youth group, where you might have 50, 60, 70, 80% who are from the families of the church. So I think I have, it's not a unique take on things, it's just a slightly different take than many people who work in churches with young people. I'll say one thing. I became a Christian from a non-church background between what is now called Year 7 and Year 8. For me, it was first year and second year of grammar school. And I was part of a Brethren church in a council estate in Swansea. And I was eager. I was a good guy, flipping heck. I wish I had myself in Tribe, if you know what I mean. I was eager. I really wanted to be a Christian. I was wrestling with all the usual stuff that teenagers do. But I was trying to, serve Jesus and whatever. I was always regular in meetings. I mean, ridiculously regular. I was there early. In fact, when I was about 16, they gave me a key. So because I got there early, I was 17, they gave me a key so I could open up for when the other people came. That's how eager I was. But I almost left. And I left for a fortnight, which for me was an eternity. And I left because a youth leader showed favoritism to another boy who was my age. And it hurt me so deeply that I almost left. And a boy who was 4 years older than me came and got me. He came to my door. And he said, what are you doing? Where have you been? And I said, oh, Norman really upset you. get here now, come with me now, and you basically drive me out of my house. So there's a few lessons to learn. For those of you who work with young people, don't let them go easily. And also, don't show favoritism, because it really, really cuts deep. Okay. Anyway, a few observations from me. Let me cut to the chase. I don't want to be preaching all night or anything. Looking back over, like I can make observations on what I feel keeps young people. I'll say one quickly. Belonging keeps young people. I'm not on about just belonging to the youth group. I mean belonging. And I think what Chris said, I was nodding quite strongly. If they feel, if church is like a family, and they feel that they belong to the family, generally speaking, they will stay. If they feel that they don't belong and people don't know their name, they won't stay. Why should they? The world beckons. So anyway, I think, broadly speaking, the main, there's a lot of smoke screens, I think. This is my view. There's a lot of, the meeting is really boring, the church is really boring, lots of old people, I don't like them. I think all those things are, for the most part, smoke screens. I think I'm looking back and I've got individual people in my head as I speak. Most weren't baptized, some were. For me, baptism is a really important thing. And I treat young people quite differently once they get baptized, much more seriously. And take them at their word, which I think is a fair thing to do. But I'm thinking of a number of people in my head, in fact scores of people, who've been around tribe, been around church, some were baptized. And this is the reason why I think they leave. When I find the passage, the seed that fell on the rock is like those who hear God's teaching and accept it gladly, but they don't allow the teaching to go deep into their lives. They believe for a while, but when trouble comes, they give up. The seed, and this is the one, the seed that fell among the thorny weeds is like those who hear God's teaching, but they let the worries, riches, and pleasures of this life keep them from growing and producing good fruit. Frankly, it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's the bottom line. And sometimes I think we have to let people go. If the call of the world is the call of the world, Paul said about a guy called Demas, who was his partner, working with the gospel. He's only mentioned 3 times in the Bible, this guy Demas. And the last mention is, Demas has left me. He loves this present world. And I think that is the issue. And what the answers are, perhaps we'll look at discussion later. But I think the major issue why young people leave the church is that whether it's them getting a car and a mobile, and they don't have to come anymore in a minibus, which is what we do. Whether it's getting a girlfriend who isn't a Christian, or boyfriend, whatever. Or it's just they really enjoy clubbing and they much prefer to get blasted on a Friday night. And it's not rocket science. That's what I believe most of the reasons are. I think I'll stop there because I'll probably chip in.
Just so they don't feel left out, I'm going to mark Campion has been tweeted in. Campo says they leave because they find other things in life more attractive, what John was just saying. Churches need to include them well in their community and ensure they have a relevant expression of faith. But church should be careful not to distort Christ's way of life in order to make church attractive. Church is people. So strictly, it's not church that's the problem, but what sometimes makes church out to be. I think a good way before we get into real discussion, because I think there'd be an interesting twist here, is it a bad thing that young people leave church? What would people's thoughts of that be?
Well, if you're the parent of a child.
Okay, so I can look at the listeners first.
Sorry. So as a parent of 2 children, I love them and it wouldn't change my relationship with them a great deal, but I know parents, older than me obviously, whose children don't go to church anymore, and it grieves them. It's something that they carry every single day of their lives. So, yeah, it is a bad thing, I think.
I think many people leave church because they think they're missing out on things in life. Then they go and live their private life or just live the way how they want to live, and then they live like that like quite happily, and that's fine. And but some of them get hurt, and then they realize that perhaps the way that they live in their lives, they thought that they're missing, but they're actually not. And when eventually people that do come back say that actually I wasn't missing anything else, I came into full life, and all the things that I lived just made me realize that I was actually missing the real deal, the love and the hope and the truth, and they sometimes regret because they screwed up, but sometimes they just grow up and they just think, well, actually, I'm not that person. So everybody has like different experiences, but I think it can be positive because if you learn that actually you weren't missing out and it actually feels so bad to be like surrounded by people that support you and they love you for who you are, and you don't really need to. I don't know. I think for me, I don't feel like if I left church and lived the way how I think if I left church, I would still live the way how I live anyway. So I don't feel like I'm missing out on popular stuff that people that don't go to church think that they are missing out. If they do go to church, they're not gonna live like a fun life. They're just gonna live a boring life. I don't see like that. I can't see myself living my life the way how I live and look back and think I should have lived a different life. But I was in church, so it was boring. I could never say that because it's not the way how I see it. But I think some people think they're missing out, and that's why they leave. Some people come back after they get hurt and learn, so they never come back because just.
A number of young people over the years have said to me, yeah, but we're missing out. So my experience confirms what you were saying.
And I was talking to a friend in Brazil, and on the phone with my sister, and she was like in my bed, just listening to me, and I was talking to my sister. Oh, this is hard, and I was sharing something, and then I said, but sometimes, and I told my sister, sometimes, God can be difficult, can't he? And then my sister wasn't understanding what I was saying, and then I hung up, and then my friend said, what are you saying? And then just said, well, and then I explained what was needed, and she said, well, actually, I think that people think that God is difficult. But I don't think it is. I think if you believe in Him, and if you actually, I think it's easier to live with God than without God, because people that live without God end up hurting, and you're not going to get hurt if you do. I can't say anymore because I'm going to say too much.
The question I want to put to you is, can you live for God and not be part of the church and go into a Sunday service? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can live a life. For many reasons, I couldn't go to church, like because I was working or because I was on holidays. I didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong because of that, but I did miss it. So I still had like my time with God, and I was like thinking about God, and I would read my Bible, and I would, but I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. But I did miss church because I like it. But I think you can live your life without going to church and still have a strong spiritual life. But I think it's harder because if you go through like a difficult time, you don't get any support from people that think the way how you think, and then you get friends to give you some advice on things on how you should do things, and because they're not as wise, you just end up in a completely different path in life that you would not have if you were in church. I think when you're in church, you're surrounded by people that care for you and you want to, to be happy. And I think for me, it's important.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I do think it's much more complicated, and I hate the phrase going to church. I don't like I don't think that's the objective. I think the objective is we try and make sure we all go to church, whether that be on a Sunday or whatever. Like, I think the objective is making disciples of Christ. Like, that's what we're called to do. And I think what should flow from that is a desire to be part of a faith community where you can express that. And sometimes I think we get it the wrong way round. And I feel sometimes, I have felt sometimes as a youth worker, particularly with Christian families, like you get a sense that what the parent really wants is to make sure the kid keeps coming to church. And I think my objective is to demonstrate Christ and pray and do everything I can to encourage a young person to become a disciple of Christ. And a natural, I think, if we've done it right and they get what it is to be a disciple of Christ, a natural flow from that is that there's a desire to be part of a family within which you can express that. I don't think it's the other way around. I think sometimes we get hacked up about we've got to get our kids to go to church. As long as they go to church, the other thing will happen, the being a disciple of Christ. I think the thing that we should desire and long for and pray for and be committed to is making disciples and encouraging discipleship. And from that comes our interaction with church, not the other way around. Possibly.
Can I have a quick comeback?
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry.
Please go ahead.
A lot, as JT was saying, a lot of the reasons why they don't come are smoke screens. And we acknowledge that over the 30 odd years we've been doing youth work, culture, education, IT, you name it, has completely revolutionised what's going on, right? But within that, we've made some mistakes, and I think we've made more positive stuff than mistakes. But what I'm intrigued in, I'll just go through some things. Young people are telling us they're sceptical about everything, which is fine, but where are they going for advice? They're just Googling things. They haven't got a clue who they're talking to. They haven't got a clue where that foundation has come from. So as church leaders and youth leaders, we have to be as transparent as we can, honest as we can. I think that's what we've always been good at. But it's this skepticism I worry about. And also, the way education has gone, a lot of church services haven't understood that, whereas youth people have. But what really upsets me is that when people go, I found this guy called Tim Clydeside, he's a sociologist in New Jersey. Clydesdale. Oh, I see him spelled this question. He called it the identity lockbox. So in different parts of your life, you're in the youth group, you're doing really well, but then you move on to university, and all of a sudden you put that into that box. And what worries me is, you can go, as when I was saying, it's true that, you do go off because of other things, but because it's in your lockbox, it's in a box. And so many young people make horrendous mistakes because they're not asking God about it. They're not asking, church leaders or even mentors or youth workers that will give good advice. So I'm very intrigued with that. Yes, sometimes you have to go away, but I think some of the reasons are smoke screens and they're not strong enough for me. But I'm into Deuteronomy in a big way for some bizarre reason. And we've got to remember the stories. I know we might say that a bit later, but we've got to remember where we come from, and we've got to say thank you to God for whatever happens. So I found that lockbox very interesting. I think there's a lot of people, I've done youth group, box closed. No, I'm leaving that box open in case I need it or something like that.
I think sometimes people that get away a little bit from church, they actually have a bit more time to think about what what it is. Because if you just go to church and just keep going, and then you don't really think about it, you just do it. Sometimes, you don't really think about what's going on. You just some people, they just accept everything. They just do it because that's what they do. And then I think sometimes when if you leave and if you have missed anything, there's probably something wrong, because that probably didn't mean anything to you, because you left the church and your life is just the same. So was it actually doing anything to you in the first place? Whereas I think if some people that leave church for a little bit and start thinking about what is the deal, and I think it becomes real then. And then there's a need, okay, there is a reason for me to be there, so I'm going to go back because of this and that, not just because it's something that I need to do every Sunday. And I think it's more meaningful. So it can be a positive thing.
Yeah, because even in, when we took why do people go to youth groups in the first place, only one person mentioned God or looking for spirituality.
Exactly. So it can be a lot more spiritual to start thinking about God.
Yeah.
More.
So the one question is posed: are the people leaving church haven't got a relationship with Jesus anyway? Which is frightening, but there is a percentage of that, because they're there for friends rather than.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to fight over?
No.
Look at that beard.
Yeah. Beards are an apple alligator dependent. Yeah, what Steve just said, I mean, well, these people are really Christians. And I think that draws in nicely to what you were just saying about, as a parent, it's a massive worry of what Ben was saying. And I think, and you're totally right, a lot of people are, one of the reasons I go to church is so that my kids go to church, to be honest. I mean, Rachel said to me, go to church on a Sunday morning, and I said, I don't want to. And she'll go, okay, watch the box instead. But because we've got kids, then that's one of the main reasons why I go to church on a Sunday morning, in that setting, that kind of church. But the reason that parents are so interested in their kids going to church, rather than necessarily having a spiritual journey, or rather than trying to look at it a bit more deeply, is because as parents, and I think any parent would say, we don't know what makes a successful Christian life. I mean, I don't know how I can influence my kids to have a positive Christian life. I've got friends who've got the best Christian parents you could ever want to, and their kids are not interested in church. And I've got friends who have got the worst possible examples, and they're going great with God, and they've got an amazing spiritual life. So I think that's why parents are so interested in young people not leaving church, and why there is so much focus and also so much money plowed in to young youth work. I mean, very few churches have, your geriatric worker, but they will pay a full-time youth worker. And that's why there's so much interest and so much focus on it, because we don't really know, and I don't really know for myself, I don't really know myself what makes a successful spiritual life. I know what works for me, but that doesn't work for other people. But yeah, coming back to what I was going to say, what do these people have a relationship with God? And do I have a relationship with God? And if so, how do I pass that on to either my kids or other young people in my influence? Well, we don't know, so we try and get them to church in the hope that somebody else does know, in the delusion that somebody else does know.
Can I go to my storytelling then?
Oh, please do.
Yeah. I love storytelling, right? And you've got a story, and I've got a story, and yours is yours, and mine is mine. So it's good. So you've got your own uniqueness, and you can talk to people with honesty and transparency, because this is my story. The Bible, basically, I was talking to a young person last week, and he said, the one thing I can't hack with going to churches, I saw all the parables seem to be about is farmers and fishermen. Brilliant, but that's what Jesus dealt with. So we've got to learn, how does that parable work in 2014? How does that work in the city of Swansea?
The parable of the sower could be the parable of the call centre.
That's it.
I just thought of that.
You know, so the thing is, the more we tell the stories and the more we remember what God did in the Bible, all of a sudden people will be interested because you're doing it out of honesty and transparency. You know, success is another question we've got to talk about again, but by communicating, people will start being interested. It's just, I think we kept too quiet, and as parents, the other thing is, I mean, I was brought up in a Pentecostal movement, and you had what the church believed in, and then both in English and Welsh, and what a good standard.
Different things in different languages.
Yeah, no, they were the same. And also what your good standards were. And one of them was lovely. Never speak around the hearth, that's a fire, if your servant or children are there. Basically what he was saying is, don't diss the church, don't diss other people.
Absolutely.
When your children or your servants are there, which is brilliant. I mean, you know, I got some really good friends, and they talk about their children when they're in the room. I'm going, that's not going to help them. You know, the negative as well as even positive, but not the negative. Or they talk about people in the church, and a 6-year-old doesn't need to know that, or a 10-year-old doesn't need to know that.
Yeah.
So there's some really good principles that stop people wanting to move away, because we're not hiding things, as in, you know, when you're in a community, there's good and bad, but you're protecting them for things they don't need to hear at that age. You know, so that.
Just to say as well, I believe that church is absolutely integral to being a disciple of Jesus. Jesus loves the church. Jesus mentioned the church twice. On one of those occasions, it was all to do with conflict resolution, relationships, and the way to do it involves the church. He said he would build his church, and being a disciple involves, as far as I understand the New Testament, being part of community of God, the congregation of God, the whichever assembly, ecclesia, church. So it's a big thing for me, and when I developed Tribe, the idea was to create a path from the street, a kid on the street, right into the heart of the church. And that was the plan. Ultimately, the plan was to create new Christian families. Just like my wife and I come from non-Christian backgrounds, and we met because we were in 2 different youth groups. The long-term aim for us was to create new Christian families which wouldn't have existed if we hadn't done our work, which thankfully we've seen a number of those. But there's just 1 or 2 things I want to mention. Right, okay. Just 1 or 2 facts. You'll probably hear Steve or Dan or myself mention, I'll be the first person to say it, that of 100 young people involved in church life, between 60 and 70 of them will drop out. It's a horrible statistic. But what is often not said is that 50% of them come back. And they come back usually in their late 20s, often when they have children, because there's a trigger goes off in their head, what is best for my child, and they will remember what was best for them and what they actually enjoyed. I meet now, I was up on the pier the other day, and there was a girl working, a young woman in her 20s, who used to come to Tribe. She was working behind the bar, and I said hello, and I said her name, and she started to cry. So what have I done? Have I left some scar on her soul?
Goes back to the start. What Bible did
She said, I'm just remembering all the wonderful times I had when I was in Tribe. And she went in a chat, and things like that happen quite a bit. We leave a deposit, we leave something of the kingdom of God. It's true to say that if we communicate the kingdom, if we preach the kingdom, we will produce church, but we also leave seeds in people's lives. And who knows when that long line which they've taken with them way out into the world will suddenly start reeling back in, and they will return. So there's a bit of hope besides all the negativity, that's what I'm trying to say. But there's just one other thing at this stage. I don't want to say too much, but I think there is a responsibility, even though there is the public world and everything, there is a responsibility on churches and those who engage in young people's lives for us to get it as right as we can. It's easy, I'm not going to say to get it right, because we will sometimes make mistakes. Moi makes mistakes. But give me an example. When it comes to the gospel, I don't believe it's good enough for us to perpetuate this particular thing. One well-known Christian band, I know the guys involved in this band, they did a tour of 50 gigs. 12,000 people, young people, made first-time decisions for Christ. And the leader of the band said, the tragedy is, most of these I know will not find their way into church. I think that we do young people a disservice if we think, and I don't believe there are people in this room do this, but if we think that sticking their hand up, running down the front, saying a few sentences of a prayer makes them a disciple of Jesus. We fool them and we inject them with a weakened form of the gospel, and they deserve better than that. They need to know that it's being a disciple. It's a lifetime thing. So that's one thing. And the second thing, Katy Perry said, am I being cool now? Just thought I'd do that. She said that she doesn't believe in heaven or hell or an old man that sits on a throne. And we know her background. She had a charismatic evangelical upbringing. And from what I can see, the parents are good parents. But if I think we communicate sometimes, and I have to wrote myself, particularly in my younger self, I think of the stuff I communicated. We're too quick to communicate heaven or hell to kids, because that's not the way the gospel is communicated. The gospel is Jesus. It's not heaven or hell. And the young people we work with need to know it is about Jesus. Fear is a very, very poor substitute for love and devotion to Jesus. It's not going to work. Now, I'm not saying I don't believe in hell. I don't believe in traditional view of hell for a biblical reason. But I'm just saying that the faith that we are communicating must be about the magnificence, awesomeness, the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Anything less than that is not communicating the Christian faith, young people. I feel I'm preaching. I will stop now.
An interesting line now to quite like to go down before we get to that. Drift alluded to it earlier, and Tim Tudor did as well. Tim Tudor said why young people leave the church is because of inflexibility in black and white views, what aren't always going to be definite subjects. And I believe Drift talked about sometimes the church preaches this lie that they're going to meet God in church, and we don't deal with young people's doubts. We teach in churches things are black and white, and then when they reach the wider world, they're often left disappointed. So I wonder if people have any thoughts on that subject.
As you're thinking, I heard a lovely story from a prison up in Lancashire last week, where the prisoners were encouraged to pray in their cells, because that's sometimes the only time they have silence and stillness. And this guy said, well, I'll pray. And he's gone, what should I pray about? What should I pray about? Apple tart. Please God, send me an apple tart. And he goes, I didn't get an apple tart, but I had the presence of God in my cell all afternoon. And it's interesting that how it doesn't have to be in the chapel to do it. You can do it in your cell. And I think church is just a word that we think of buildings all the time, but it doesn't have to be in a building. It doesn't, we've got to remember that, and we've got to allow the young people to realise that it's not church where they go to pray; they can do it anywhere. And it's just encouraging them to realise that, by using the word church all the way tonight, it's just frustrating in a way, because it's not the building, is it? It could be here, it could be in the playground, it could be in the college bar, it could be anywhere. And right, anybody think good? We can answer your question then. Great. Oh.
I guess it wasn't necessarily about, oh, you're going to meet God in church, I think it's a lie, because I've met God in church a number of times, and it's a good place to meet God. It's not as good as a cliff top or a beach. No, it's a good place to meet God. I guess the one thing that I say to my kids more often than anything else, and that stops them, is I don't know. And they'll ask me a question, and I'll say, I don't know. And nobody else says that to my kids. The teachers don't say that. Then Rachel, I love dearly, but tries to give them an answer because she thinks that she owes it to me. And perhaps she said, perhaps feel sorry that they're not getting it from me. But I genuinely think that it's not that we give the answer and that's wrong. I don't want to sound like, oh, you know, for whatever topic it may be, whatever contentious topic, that when teenagers, you know, get up against whatever, you know, predestination or creation and evolution or any topic that they might have been taught as a kid, that they might then be thinking, well, that's not right. It's not that we tell them that we don't give them the options. It's that we give them the options and then we tell them what that we believe, which is what they're underlying. They know that's what they want me to believe. That's what they want me to know. And that's not. I don't think that's helpful. I don't want my kids to be taught what to think. I want to teach them how to think. So when my kids ask me, oh, so-and-so said that boys can't marry boys, but Uncle Alberto's married a boy, then you go, oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's right, yeah. Oh, well, so what's right, Daddy? And I just go, well, what do you think? Or I don't know. Whereas if I say, well, I've obviously got my views on it, but I don't want to go, oh, well, here are my views, or some people think this and some people think that, but I think this, and you should think that. And I think that's what we do in church. I mean, I think we've realised that saying this is the answer is wrong, but we still say, oh, some people think this and some people think that, and then we give our point of view across. And I'm not saying that's wrong, I just don't think it's helpful. So that's related to that kind of topic.
Growing up in the church, I'm trying to find the right way to word this. I found a strong foundation in the community of it. When I go to church now, people ask how I am, people ask how I'm doing, and that's the reason why I'm still here. And that's the reason why I have a relationship with God, and that's the reason why this still is a thing that exists in my life. And if I was just, when I first went to other Christian events such as Soul Survivor, things like that, Soul Survivor is the only one I can draw experience of, but I feel that the lie that has been drawn is they're appealing to young people's instant gratification, because that's what young people want. A lot of the time, they want things now, and if I don't get it now clearly, I don't want it. And the idea you were talking about earlier, we got to go to the front and we'll put our hands up and we'll say these few words, and then I get filled with this amazing thing. Is something I fell into myself. I feel like I've almost tricked myself studying psychology myself. The mind is an incredible thing, and it can trick you into believing whatever you want it to. It's scary and it's amazing at the same time, but I genuinely do believe I've tricked myself into believing and seeing and interpreting things the way I was told to by this big kind of authoritarian idea of, well, unless you're given this instant feeling, and you've got to be given, and you've got to feel the Spirit every time. Otherwise, it's not real. There's nothing there. And I'm not probably going to express myself very well, but I feel there's something deeper. There's something much deeper than having this great feeling. There's something much deeper to religion and to faith than that. Which is why I'm sad when I talk to my friends and I talk to other people who have left the church, people who are very strong Christians, but they were strong in that facade. They were strong in the sense of, oh, I went to this event and I came back and it was the most amazing thing ever, but they never do anything about it because they were never told to. I was speaking to someone recently who said, oh, I left the church. And I said, oh, why did you leave the church? And he said, well, I left after my grandmother died, and the thing that got me, especially, which I can understand, but I still haven't got my head around, is I left because I agreed with Jesus and not with God. And that was a thing that, one, startled me, and two, made me really think. And obviously I see God and Jesus, and that's a whole topic of discussion, are they one of the same in itself? But I almost think that they see God as a list of rules. They see the Old Testament and they see, thou shalt do this, shalt not do this, as God. And that's sad. That's sad that a lot of young people think that way.
It's bad teaching.
Yeah, it is bad teaching. I think that could be the main reason, honest, in my mind anyway, that's what I've seen as the main reason why young people leave the church. They haven't been told what it is. That it isn't a building. That it isn't. I think I read a book recently which was talking about the Los Angeles revival and the main thing I got from that, it was a weird book. I didn't agree with parts of it, but the main thing I got from it was that church doesn't start when the pastor walks in. Church, like all these people just wait outside a church and wait for it to open for the pastor to unlock the door. And one of the guys running the revival said, well, why didn't you start it? If you're here to worship God, why haven't you started at the door? Which I think it's something that we need to teach people more often, that faith isn't associated with the building, isn't associated with the pastor, it's associated with a whole community of people.
Yeah.
Harry, I think you might be being a little bit harsh on yourself with some of the early stuff you said. But I do completely understand where you're coming from, because I believe you can meet God in a dramatic, life-changing way in Soul Survivor.
Mm.
But I also know that as you grow from that, you realise that that's not it, that wasn't it. But I don't think that invalidates what happened to your intent in Soul Survivor.
Yeah.
And I think the danger is, and I see lots of people do this, which is why sometimes I'm a little bit cautious about we need to keep people in church. Not because I don't think church is brilliant and what Christianity is a fundamental part of your Christian journey. But I think sometimes people need to leave it, or leave a particular expression of it, to go through these processes of re-evaluating and reconfiguring their brains and reinterpreting how God has worked in their lives. And I can't remember why I put my hand up. It wasn't to say that.
To go to the toilet.
It's over there on the corner.
The more I'm thinking about this evening, is the reality simply that loads of people, not just young people, give up on faith because it's really hard. Like being a Christian is really hard. Like having faith is really hard. And I think sometimes it's miraculous that more of us don't give up on it more often than we do.
Well, that's why my brother actually called it Soul Survivor, didn't he? Because he wanted kids to survive.
Yeah, but I think this is why I do think the church is important, because I think it's inevitable that you will, because the thing that matters is Jesus and your relationship with Jesus and being a disciple of Jesus. But it's really, really hard. Like it's really hard. Like it's the hardest thing any of us will ever choose to do with our lives. And the church is the only way, if there's any possibility, like within that community, is the only way there's any possibility, I think, of actually living that in any way, shape or form that's even vaguely like the kind of life we're called to.
Amen.
Can I say a quick observation? Sorry, JT. So I'm a paediatrician. Part of my job is dealing with teenagers with chronic illnesses. So understanding teenagers' brains is a really important part of my job. as a general rule, and you can't generalise to everybody, but as a general rule, the actual anatomy of your brain during adolescence really affects the way you think. And you don't think like adults. It's really important to remember that when we're teaching young people. Young people tend to make decisions based on gut instinct rather than rationale. That's a tendency. It's not everyone like that, but they tend to make emotive. What do my emotions tell me I should make this decision? And they don't experience pleasure like you or I do. So that's why they do really risky things. Because if they want to experience a really happy emotion, they'll have to do a really extreme thing to achieve that. So sometimes, and that's why adolescence is characterised by risk-taking and rebellion, in part. I think not trying to change the message of who Jesus was, but trying to express it in a way that it makes sense to young people, that really matters. Mm. So a couple of thoughts for you as youth workers as well. I think Lyndon's desperate for young people's teachers, with saying that we should get youth into roles of responsibility and integrate them into church. Let's have the youth teaching my kids.
Yeah. Can I just say, yeah, I've been waiting for the conversation to more naturally go down this line, but I think you're taking me there. Like, in terms of people dropping out, like, I used to get really frustrated, and there's loads of people like this in London, people who come on a Sunday if they've got something that they're doing on the Sunday. Okay, so there's loads of people in church who will come if they've got a job to do, and it used to really frustrate me. Like, why do you only come if we've asked you to sing in the band? Why do you only come if we've asked you to say something at the front? And it used to really frustrate me. And then I thought, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought, but that's brilliant. Because church isn't about coming and sitting and being entertained and taking and walking out. Like, I think it's, like, that observation made me feel like we need to find ways of getting everybody to feel like, not because we want to keep them in a manipulative way, because it's good and healthy for a group of people to feel like this, to bring something to the church family when it meets. Because that's the reality, is when young people have got something that they're doing on a Sunday morning, and we said to them, could you do this? They come. If they think, well, it doesn't really matter if I come this morning, because I'm not been asked to bring something, or nobody's relying on me for this, or they think, and it's the same with me. I mean, I reckon 50% of Sundays at Linden, I've got a job to do, with meeting or youth or worship or whatever. And when I wake up on a Sunday morning on those Sundays, there's no question in my mind about whether I'm going to be part of the Linden family that Sunday morning. I'm going because I've got something that I've prepared to bring, and I know people rely on me for that. Honestly, I mean, I love church, absolutely love church. Honestly though, on the Sunday mornings like this morning, where I was just going to church, I didn't have anything that I had to be there for. Do you know what? A big part of me thought, shall I just stay here and watch the big question, or whatever it is on a Sunday morning? The reality is, on a Sunday morning when you wake up, if you don't feel like you are bringing something for a purpose, and you're contributing to that community, well, it is easier not to go and to go off, out in the sunshine in the summer. And so you're absolutely right, absolutely. And I think it's something that I think Linden is much better at than some churches, but needs to get better at. Yeah, absolutely.
Tom, most of you don't know me that well. Whenever I use the word church, I never, ever refer to a building. And in fact, I was one of the people instrumental in Linden not being called either a chapel or church. That's why I started Linden Christian Centre. I was in the church for nearly 20 years. Does some people still call it the building? Or has that faded as time goes on?
No, you do. I still find
because and that's residual, because we called it the building, not the church, and it was quite a big part of the culture of the church at that time. And we could do barn dances in the building because it's not the church. Somebody tried to put sanctuary above, or chapel above the entrance to the main hall, and I took it down 4 times. 4 times I took it down, and the guy gave up in the end because it was just a building. It's just too. I know it's an aside. It's not to do with you people. I'm going to have to disagree with Drift. I love him DJing, but I'm going to slightly disagree with you. Everybody teaches our kids, whether it's our own children or whether it's the children in the youth group or whatever. Everybody does. MTV teaches them. The entire media empire teaches them. School teaches them. And above all, and you know exactly what I'm going to say, their peers teach them by practice, by demonstration, by peer pressure, and all that sort of stuff. Yes, we do have to teach them how to think, as well as what to think, because we. If someone asks me a question, I always say, look, the issue here is not. I keep teaching tribe. Mr. Killick is my witness. That look, you know, when you walk away, it's not going to be good enough for you to say, what JT said. When I'm dead and I am gone, it's not going to be good enough for them to think about something I said. They have to believe that if what I have said tallies with what God has revealed to us, which of course is in the scriptures, then that's good enough to trust and to believe. So whether it's sexuality, whether it's a broader area of morality, whether it's to do with spiritual faith or what happens when we die, I will teach things, but I will also say, look, you've got to do it yourself. You've got to find out for yourself. You've got to get to a place where your faith is received from God. Initially, perhaps via a bald geezer with a beard, but as you mature, I do it with Zambia. In Zambia, they say to me sometimes, church leaders, they'll say, "JT, tell us what to believe, and we'll believe it." And that's just appalling. It just isn't good enough. And I will say, whatever, but we need to point people to have a mature faith as well. I'm sure there was something else I was going to say. I've got Britney Spears written here. You can say it well for Britney Spears.
One thing probably I regret most than anything, I'm getting slightly better at it, is that how do we equip young people to go into school and not argue their case, because I don't believe in argument, but join the discussion. You know, because quite often they're ridiculed because they believe it, they might believe creation is said in Genesis. But giving them the ammunition, it's a strong word, sorry, but just being happy in themselves and saying, this is what I believe. You know, and, they will still have to answer the questions in the exam. If it's Darwin, that's the flavour of the day that year. But it's that thing about just equipping them, I think. And that will help them from, all these other questions come in. They can, we can give them the stuff to work out, but then sometimes take it forward for them,
Britney Spears.
Mike. Yeah, Britney Spears was an example of, I remember I said, I tried years ago, and Britney Spears was saying, oh, she's a Christian, she's a virgin, she was boasting about being a virgin, if you remember. She crashed and burned, didn't she? That's why Jesus is so important, I suppose. It's very hard to find the perfect role model. One quick thing, I'm into apologetics, some of you know that. I was helping to give an answer when people ask and whatever. And I think I try as best I can to create, to help create an understanding of the faith which doesn't rest on whether the world is only 10,000 years old. I think it's a foolish thing if we lock our young people into particular beliefs like that which aren't central to the gospel message. I used to steer conversations around the creation and evolution. I had to deliberately do it when I was younger, and it was stupid. I said, like talking about dinosaurs in the ark, what's the point of them? And now, these days, I focus people on Jesus and try my best. I would commend that approach to you as well. So they don't then think there's a clash between science and the Bible. Will often talk about scientists. I think all young people need to know that there are loads of scientists who believe God made everything, and they believe the Bible and follow Jesus. So it's relevant in retaining.
There's some interesting things coming up on the screen, and then we lost them. I'm going to read them out. I don't know who it was, but there's some.
Can I just say one other thing? Okay. You know, you're saying some of your friends lose faith because of what, God and sort of some of the Old Testament, you must do this, you can't do that, and all that. I must admit, let's say the last 10 years, that's all I seem to talk about. Let's come back to Deuteronomy again. When Jesus was asked, what's the commandment? Love the Lord your God with everything and love your neighbour yourself. And that's all I talk about, because that's it. And I think the more young people understand that, all the bits in the Old Testament, the do's and don'ts, actually go and do in significance, because you're loving Jesus, and then before you know it, you're serving people. It's just automatic. So just, yeah. Yeah, but it's sad that some people drift into that, do's and don'ts. Oh, sorry.
Tragedy, I think, when young people leave, like in my situation with Tribe, when they go, there is no backstop. Very often in a church situation, they've still got parents back home who are Christians or whatever. When I see a young person, it breaks my heart. I find youth work probably the most painful aspect of my Christian life. I cry so many tears. When a young person goes, that's it. They basically drop off the edge. And I have to trust that God will draw them to Himself as time goes on. But the tragedy is, if a young person leaves, whether it's a daughter or son, for those who have any, or whether it's those who are around the church in the youth group or anything. So when they leave, and if they do come back in 5, 10 years' time, they may come back, and I'm sorry to be blunt, this is a family show, I'm sure, they'll come back with an STD. They'll come back with an abortion. They'll come back with even worse self-esteem than they had before they left. They'll come back damaged because of their experience. That's why it's important to try and retain young people around the community of faith. It's so important because it's bad out there. It really is.
Let me draw your attention to something that's going on Twitter. Alice really liked your campaign about getting young people to do stuff. But he also said, do I meet God in church when I'm with the church? So that was a very good point.
Who said that?
Ellis at Little Warrior. Do we meet? You saw some of this. What else do we have?
Because the battery on the laptop's going.
What else do we have, Steve? Which we like?
Oh. There's so many tweets, you have to scroll through them.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
we're inundated.
Wow.
He also made the point, do young people leave the church because we make it too easy for them to get in? That's completely different. Is it too easy to come to church?
Yeah. Well,
impossible to be too easy.
Do you end up having contractual church?
Yeah.
I don't think that works.
Impossible.
I've seen contractual.
Too easy.
Yeah, I've seen contractual.
The entire message request is, please come, I love you.
Steve.
Well, I've got a question for you. Sorry, but just to confirm something that has been said a couple of times today. It's belonging, believing, building as well. And building is getting young people involved straight away, as you were saying. But also, I want to endorse what Ben says, is having them prepared to come to give something. There's something really important in that. Because we've all got stories, we've all got things to say, but it's the belonging, believing, and building is most important. But I've got another question for you, because we are running out of time. How can you help young people not leave the church? Have a quick. How can you help children, young people, not leaving the church?
How
can I help you? Yeah.
We'll start now, then. Actually engaging with them.
And again, I'm writing a lot to say, but I would say the big thing I would letting them know that my issue with discipline when you're reading stuff they said, they're standard, it's so unrealistic, and they actually
more than engaging with the
I desire to see
so that they actually
So real relationship.
Seeing people being honest, and expect
Okay, let's have a quick tell us, and then I'll tell you with some of my ideas.
Mike, you have.
after.
Yep, you do.
Then I mainly went back to your point in actually actively engaging with the young person, more than just chatting. You're talking to them at church, being a friend to them. Knowing what GCSEs are doing in school, AS levels, A levels. Knowing what they're doing in uni, actually knowing, not just talking to them.
Preach it. Yeah, good. Like that. Any other short and sweet?
Anybody else?
I think we've just got to love them, love them, and love them, and even when they're being complete pillars, just keep loving them. And then on top of that, the really time-consuming, tiring, exhausting, practical stuff like picking them up,
Amen.
all of that kind of stuff makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to get more people in churches doing that kind of stuff, like picking up and dropping off. But yeah.
Any others? Yeah.
No.
Go.
I just think as someone who has recently come back to church, or back to faith, like first and then back to church, I think we need to let them and help them explore their faith. I think that it's important that they answer some questions themselves, and I think it's really important that they know that asking questions is also not believing. I think that when I struggled and when I sort of was wondering about faith and my faith and stuff like that, I think because I had so many questions and none of them were being answered, that I just thought, that's it, that's not action, that's me, that's not, I don't believe in God and I don't believe in Jesus and I don't have a relationship with Him. But actually, those questions, once some of them, the fundamental ones, get answered, you find that actually those questions actually mean that you have a relationship with Jesus. And I think that the fact that I ask questions every day, I love the fact that I am learning and that I know I have a relationship with Jesus. I think that builds on your faith, and that builds on the fact that you then can use other people in the church or as a church to help you then. I think that once you've realised where you are in your own faith, that's when the church becomes a part of your faith. I don't think that forcing someone who won't listen to you yet, that they have to have faith or they have to do this, they have to do that. I don't think that's right. I think that once they find their own faith, that's when
like for now, like, you know, I've been a Christian, what, a year and a bit, and I know now that I can use any one of the people I know as part of my church to ask questions, to help answer them, to, you know, answer my doubts, maybe build on my relationship with Jesus, and I think that that's the most important. I think that's what we need to do for the people in our youth and the people even like not in our youth, people as our friends who have left. I think that the best thing about it is that we can all get together and ask questions and grow together rather than apart.
Brilliant.
I think that having mentioned tonight in terms of giving youth the opportunity to lead in church, I think it's equally important that churches put in place, try their best to put in place, a situation where young people have someone to look up to, someone that they can walk with, and someone that they can lead. Because I think when I was in church growing up, they were probably the times where I really flourished there, where I had someone that I thought was amazing, that was a role model, that I really wanted to be. People that I could say, this is what happened on the weekend, what's your life looking like, oh, we're screwing up together, what are we going to do about it, let's make a plan with, and people that I could also, you know, be looked at with.
Anybody else? Well, how do I get them? I'm not on my fish.
No, just quickly, I would say very much, I agree with what Kate said about asking the ability to ask questions. Speaking as someone who's very tenuous type of church, you know, I've been very much brought up in mainstream Christianity and, you know, moral church attendance, etc., etc. I think there is a proportion of the people that we're talking about here who are not necessarily drawn away by things that they find more attractive, but potentially lost because maybe the answers that they've been given aren't quite stacking up with what they want to be stacked up with, or what they've been told they're going to stack up with. And I think sometimes the ability to ask questions, and it's okay that maybe there's not a black and white answer at the end of it, it's something that's potentially criticised or looked down. I think there's always got to be an answer. I think even in the world, there's plenty of things that there's no answer to, like the Big Bang Theory is potentially incorrect, etc. You know, there's lots of things that are held up as scientific truth that may not necessarily be true, and people who have got the theories are quite happy to say this is our best theory to date, but it could change, and it has changed. And I think perhaps there's something in Christianity or religion or, you know, the search for Jesus, the search for truth, that maybe is a journey, perhaps more than just a kind of an endpoint. I think there's maybe a little bit of expectation that once you've reached the endpoint, then you're in this magical place and it's okay. But I think maybe life is slightly more, slightly more grey than that, it's more of a journey. And I think maybe there's perhaps a little bit more emphasis on the journey being part of the truth than that may be of value.
Good. I've actually noticed in the last 5 years where journey is coming out more and more in churches, which is good. Realising it is a journey. There's loads of things church can do, but also there's loads of things you can do as well. You know, Titus talks about the older people looking after the younger people, and as long as we do it genuinely, it could be, you know, like different churches will do different things, but you can adopt someone in a nice sort of way. You adopt a young person, and it could mean you just send them a text once a week, or you might have a coffee with them, or something like that. There's lots of things you can do. And the scary thing is, in your churches, the teenagers are looking up to you guys as their role models. But as long as you're honest and transparent, it works. And that's what we've always got to be, is honest. Honesty and transparent, and things will work, relationships will work. Can I just do a little bit on storytelling? Do you mind doing if I just rattle on? Does anybody know Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? Yeah. Come on then, who's prepared to say Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? Shout it out.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star,
How I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
And where's the other verses? Did you know there's other verses to this?
No, sing it.
See, this is why we've got to know our stories. Because the second verse says, when the blazing sun is gone, when he nothing shines upon, then you show your little light, twinkle, twinkle, all the night. So the sun turned around with it, oh, Jesus is gone, we are now the light, so you've got to shine. And then the third verse, then the traveller in the dark thanks you for your tiny spark. He could not see which way to go if you didn't twinkle so. So the guys in your churches that are younger than you, you're shining that little spark. And that little spark will help them through this journey. It's good, isn't it? So get to know your stories. Get to know your stories. So I don't say anything, John. I'm story quick. Story mad.
It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a church to raise a Christian. And that's been my experience. And young people that stick are people who have been stuck to by a range of ages and whatever. Young people, teenagers and whatever, need to, I'll just say this. One of the factors in my mind which causes young people to stick, whether it's in the youth group or in the church, is not only are there upward connections to people older than themselves and people they can look up to. And I'll be honest with you, right? Someone who's 19 will have infinitely more influence and power upon middle teenagers than I ever will. No matter how good I am, no matter how wise I am, no matter how sensible I am or caring, they will have much, much more influence. The younger the person is to their own age, you can look up to them. It is immense. Some of you in this room are so powerful, you have no idea. And you can influence them for good or for ill. But if it's for good, please influence the young people around you, because it does take a village to raise a child, and you are part of that village. So the second thing I wanted to say, I've forgotten. What was it? 56. I'm feeling fast. I'll be gone before the night. I've just disappeared. Done a plug over my own bad memory. It's not even written down. It was so spontaneous. Never mind. I'll come to you.
Ellis and Little Warrior pointed out that maybe we need to live more radical Christ-like lives so they can see and be a part of something deeper.
Yeah.
Shall I try and do a John-style roundup?
I just keep attempting it. It's only going to pay into insignificance compared to what John Matthews would do. But I believe in you then.
Has a big brother who's still
Dan, twinkle away. Go on, twinkle away, Dan.
You know, Ben, the closer you are in age to somebody, you will influence them.
So I'm going to try and twinkle. This isn't going to be much John, but I'm going to take us on a little bit of the journey tonight.
Hold on, you just remember.
Have you remembered?
Hold on. Keep twinkling.
Yeah. Not only the upward connections, but the lower connections. In the cycle of because youth work is cyclical, in the cycle of youth work, on a number of occasions we've reached a stage where some of the older ones will, oh yuck, it's those horrible 11, 12-year-olds at the bottom end who are coming in. Nah, you just wait a little while, and suddenly when they realise that those 11, 12-year-olds look up to them and think they're awesome and want them to chuck them in the air and do all that sort of stuff and whatever, I've seen young people really blossom because the connections downward are there as well as upward. And that sense of being a big brother and a big sister, because it does take a village, not just parents and grandparents and village chieftains, but also the fact that they're not the runts of the pack. They're not the bottom of the thing. If they can help other ones who are yet younger than them, it's really important.
Okay, here we go.
Go on, John.
So we started off the night discussing why do young people go to church, and we had a variety of reasons: girlfriends, boyfriends, that kind of stuff. Fun stuff, something to do, they're bored. Why do they leave the church? They can be bored of church, they can struggle to find God in church. John mentioned about people who preach fear and not love and the power of God. Then we moved on to where do we meet God, and then spoke about we should be creating disciples, not just churchgoers. If we create disciples, then the church part should follow on from that. And then finally we looked at how do we keep young people in the church. I'm not sure that's the right way about it. But anyway, genuinely care for people and love them and love them and love them. Help them explore faith and have their own faith for themselves, and how questions can bring deeper faith. And we also said that growth happens in community and with genuine discipleship. Giving young people responsibility was a theme which came up throughout the night. And young people, if they feel that they have a role to play in church, will generally stick to church. And there was an emphasis of truth being a journey, that we need to be better at describing this journey of faith to our young people that are part of our churches. And then we ended up with John talking about how it takes a whole church to raise a Christian, and upwards and downwards. It takes a village to raise a child. So that has been Headspace tonight. Thank you all very much for coming. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, JT, for your words of wisdom, and everyone else for joining us. Those online, those on Twitter. I think next month's Headspace, we may do another journey. We may alternate between looking at someone's journey of faith, as you discussed earlier. Looking at faith as a journey. Next week we have Transmission, which is creative prayer and worship, which will be happening here. Then the week after that, we've got Captain Cat playing here for our first Unplugged since we've had the renovation here at the cafe. So thanks everyone for joining. Steve, over to you.
And those that are looking there, we are not hostages, honestly, against the back wall of whiteness. That's right there. We are free to be.
Good night, good night.
It looks like. So